Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Polani. Let's look at some political, formulations coming up across the country. But if it's not one thing, it's another. Right now, it's like the good people of Anambra State working towards the November 8th election, when there shall be an election for a new governor in the state. It might very well be the present governor that becomes the new governor, if you get my meaning, because Professor Charles Soludo, he is the incumbent governor, and he was recently, at the primaries, he was very successful. He was elected to represent the party in the November 8th election, and I've been hearing commentary. He feels pretty good about it. I even listened, I watched an interview that he did, and that was even on our station, and he feels very, very comfortable about the matter. But that is not to say that there are no other contenders. That is just the case of APGA. APC is in there. Nicholas Ukachukwu is the man, and for APC, who will be squaring up against Professor Soludo. And Labour Party, we have George Moghalu, who will be squaring up in that race. And that's not to mention a host of others. We'll probably be talking about it as we go along. But my guest this morning, I'm sure he's very much more interested in his candidate, which is the incumbent governor. I can see, you see that wide spike. Mazi Ejiofor Opara, PhD, is the National Publicity Secretary of APGA, All Progressives Grand Alliance. Also, you're senior special assistant, aren't you?
Yeah,
to
the governor on new media.
To the governor in
State.
Anambra State on new media. Well, all I can say is that Mazi Ejiofor Opara, PhD, he's a new generation person. New generation person, and perhaps it's a bit understanding why new media, you're in charge of advising the governor on that. Okay, so, well, first of all, maybe congratulations for the primaries victory. Professor Soludo, he scaled that comfortably, I think, so much so that there was nobody that came out and wanted to contest with him. How did that happen? Was that a strong arm tactic, or was that just that within the party they know that Soludo is the man? Okay,
thank you, Uncle Yori, for having me. Once again, it's a good thing being on TVC once more. You guys have been such a huge and beneficial partners in progress. Thank you. Good morning, listeners. First of all, I've said this, and I'll say it for the umpteenth time, that Governor Chukwuma Soludo is, as of today, the consensus candidate of the Anambra. Now, note, I didn't say APGA.
Not of APGA.
No, I didn't say APGA alone.
That's a big stretch.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you, I mentioned it somewhere, and some persons were raising eyebrows. You see, when it comes to the Anambra politics, APGA is a religion. So it's almost taken for granted that, whatever APGA decides upon, becomes the norm. And it's been like this over the years, that APGA as a party, and this is not for any other reason, but for the fact that APGA as a party in the last 22 years has provided the Anambra with, very progressive developmental strides. Every successive APGA administration in the state has done something significant that the state, prides in, something the state can boast about. And as of today, Governor Soludo has taken that stride, notches higher, beyond the expectations of the people. So, need I say or reel out the groundbreaking and what I describe as never before seen achievements of a Professor Soludo in the last 3 years? Because we just clocked 3 years in office on 17th of March. And he has done some unprecedented things that have never before been seen in the state. It's almost common in our political setting that most chief executives, for instance, when they want to leave office, they come up with recruitments, in the belief that they will transfer the burden of the wage bill to the next administration and all. But in less than 5 months of Soludo's government, he recruited 5,000 teachers, 5,000 qualified teachers. 3 months after that, he added another 3,115, making it 8,115 teachers to end the era of schools without teachers. As of today in Anambra, the most competitive sector or category of education is the public school system, because of the rejigging, because of the life that a Soludo administration has breathed into it. Now today, and, you know, people ask and say 8,000 is what kind of, how they were competitively recruited. And as at the last check, we have these teachers spread across 18 states of the Federation. So,
you know, it's an interesting that you started there, because I think I was listening to the candidate of yes, APC it was, in an interview, Nicholas Ukachukwu, who, when this matter was brought up about the Soludo strides in education, he had said that, look, any Indian Anambra will tell you that when it comes to education in the place, let us give credit where it is due. You look to the churches, especially the Catholic Church, maybe the Anglican Church. And so for somebody to try and, as it were, purloin that, you know, let's keep it real for a moment. I wonder how you would respond to that.
Now, let me, you see, the truth is that people speak according to the facts available to them. And not everybody is as detailed and space-taking enough to actually go for the facts. Some people just they feel so comfortable with just any information. And maybe a Nicholas Ukachukwu falls, you know, in the category of those who are too pedestrian with actually, you know, with information. So, but let me put it straight. In Anambra State, there are 3 or maybe 4 categories of, you know, the schooling system. We have the public schools, we call the public. These are the ones owned strictly and, you know, proprietary by the state government. We have the public mission. Now, this is the one that, you know, if you like, the ones that are, you know, owned by the mission schools, but somewhat, you know, have some community coloration. Then we have the one they call the mission schools. These are schools that are strictly mission, owned by either the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, or Pentecostal Church, strictly for them. The state or community has no proprietary right, you know, to them.
And they are something like foundational, because they've been at it for decades upon decades upon decades.
Of course, I'm just trying to create the context so for you to understand the import and the impact of what Soludo has done in terms of revolutionizing the public schools. Now, then you have the last one, which is the private schools, owned by private individuals and all that. Now, amongst these 4 categories, one was actually the most derelict, the most, you know, rejected, the least funded or the least taken care of, and which happens to be the public. And in the wisdom of, you know, Professor Soludo, if government cannot provide something as basic as education to the people, then of course that government is not thinking about the future, because education, for all we know, is the future of every society. And now if you go to some of these schools, you know, you may say, oh, the mission public may be cheap, but how cheap is cheap? How affordable is affordable? There are people who actually may not be able to even pay 1,000 naira as tuition. We have such persons, you know, amongst us. So, and we discovered that, you know, prior to our coming, this particular issue where we had these public schools as the least, you know, in terms of enrollment, in terms of quality, in terms of all, you know, all other categories of consideration you may actually want to, you know, consider. They were the least on all fronts. So the governor said no, that can't be. We have to rejig that which belongs to us, and we have to rejig that which the people know as our own. And this was what led to the major reforms that are currently ongoing in Anambra State public schools. And of course, you know, we didn't do this in exclusion to other, you know, the mission schools and all that, because of the 8,115 teachers recruited, about 3,000 of them or so were also deployed to some of these public mission schools, you know, because people, those who school there are still in the Anambra. But a better chunk of, you know, this recruitment was focused on rejigging the public schools. And he didn't stop at that. He declared free, totally free. What I mean free, all you need to do is bring your child and get him to school in Anambra State, from the basic, from nursery school up onto SS3.
All expenses paid?
All expenses paid by the state.
Maybe apart from uniform and books?
All expenses paid by the state.
Or including uniforms?
Uniforms, yes. All expenses paid by the state, yes.
Okay.
By the state. Just bring your child to school.
Well, what did that result in since
now,
Professor Soludo started?
Ever since that started, we've experienced about 27% increase in enrollment in the primary schools, and about 10.6% increase in enrollment in secondary schools. So there has been this major rejig. And in terms of...
Are they really schools? Because I say that because in Nigeria here, you yourself might have been surprised, perhaps not, by structures that call themselves schools, you know, going to other states that I don't need to mention now. And the outrages, actually, things under the tree, some not even having complete roofs. So that's why I said, are they really schools, or are we just going for this so that we can count when the time comes to count?
No. You see, there are two aspects of this. In terms of when it comes to the schooling system, two things are key. But the most fundamental is the quality of teaching and the quality of teachers.
Okay.
Now, and that is one point where I believe Governor Soludo was quite insistent on the recruitment process of these 8,115 teachers. So that has been corrected. That has been taken care of. Now, the next is infrastructural facelift, which majority of the schools in the state, public schools in the state, have experienced. If you go down to, hitherto urban slums like Okpoko, today you have schools that you can actually call more like a model schools. And it's taken it a notch higher too by introducing what he calls the smart school system. And we are, starting off with a pilot of about 22 across the state.
What's a smart school?
A smart school is a school driven by technology.
Okay.
Now, where the system of pedagogy is enshrined or intertwined with the technological advances that we have currently in the country or in the world. So you can't do Soludo has a maxim which he says that Anambra should be able to produce because for us in Anambra, we believe that human resources is our highest foreign exchange earner. And he says that he wants to produce human resource capitals that are productive at home and exportable abroad. You cannot achieve that by just teaching them the same old way. They have to be in sync. They have to be in tune with the advances in technology, which of course is the way forward today. So we are beginning to establish, for the pilot scheme, 22 smart schools, and they are scattered across the 21 local governments in the state. So it tells you that this is a man who is committed to not just governing the people, but changing their lives for good. Because he would tell you that, part of the opportunity equalizers that we have, in societies, one of them is education. If you give the child of a poor woman or a poor family very good education, chances are that the next generation that child now represents should be able or may be able to lift the family out of poverty. Now he calls it sustainable neo-welfarism. And this is just on education. In terms of subsistence, we have in Anambra today what you may call regenerative agriculture, and it's for us more like
regenerative agriculture.
Yes, and we are doing a revolution more like a rehash of the Michael Obara era of palm, and all that. So today in Anambra we have the state government has distributed over 2 million improved seedlings of palm and coconut to about 242,000 households across the state. So if you do the maths, a household is getting about 10, And it's our belief that since they are improved seedlings, their gestation period is quite reduced. So maybe in the next 3-4 years, they will begin to fruit. Now imagine a household that has about 10 of this, and when it begins to fruit, both the coconut and the palm, if you want to extract their value chain in terms of what the family can derive out of it, it's unimaginable.
Let me understand that. Is it just to families, households that are agriculturally inclined or professional farmers, or every household? Is it a statistical figure you gave me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
No, what I'm not telling you is that, of course, beyond the fact that Anambra is a commerce and trade-driven society, agriculture is also part of the fulcrum of that society, which over the years has been a bit neglected. But of course, we know that it's the game changer. You never go wrong with agriculture. No matter what you do, man must feed. No matter what you do, some of these, constituents of this, because these are cash crops, both agriculture, both coconut and the palm. So, and it's something that can actually transform the life of the family. If you go to the market today and ask for the price of a kg of palm oil, as a matter of fact, you ask yourself, would we have Malaysia for an example, where palm transformed everything that has to do with the economy? So, if a country could have recorded such a humongous success story with regards to investments in agriculture, imagine what happened to a subnational like Anambra. So this is exactly what, and these are some of the will I say human capital development aspects of what Soludo is doing. I've not even mentioned to you what a program called 1U 2 Skills. The 1U 2 Skills is, we believe that, in Anambra, you must have something to exchange, money for. And that must be, domiciled in the intrinsic value that you can give as a human being. Nobody can give what they don't have. So the governor, in his wisdom, decided to say, okay, at least every Anambra youth should have at least 2 skills. If you come to our society today, there's this dearth of artisans. We have a situation where people travel to as far as Cotonou, Togo, to get people to do certain,
I was going to come to jobs, this in relation to what you said earlier about Governor Soludo's attack on that particular aspect of life, where the youth in Anambra, everybody knows the prowess of Anambra in terms of business. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at all if anybody told me that there are more billionaires.
Of course, that's the truth.
There are more billionaires in Anambra than in any other state.
No, that's the fact. Per square meter, you get to find them.
So it's like the value that has been placed on education. I think material success, financial wealth has been prized above education. But Soludo himself, being an academic, he's a professor, he probably sees it differently. So hold that, hold that skill. It seems like the Anambrarian and business, they were born together. He has to find a way to make it work, but you're not saying 1U 2 skills. So I wouldn't be surprised if quite a number of them said, okay, the intrinsic part of it, it's like people joke, they say that the Jebu man that is reading economics is just doing research.
He's a born economist. For us, with regards to the 1U 2 skills thing, we believe that, if you look at the figures, before I think the last survey, done by the MBS, Anambra had one of the least, in terms of unemployment rate in the country. And if you don't continue to emphasize that, which, puts it in that pride of place, over time you begin to experience, some biting or spiral unemployment. So what Soludo is doing, by the 1U 2 skill, is to ensure that we have more productive youths. As a matter of fact, it's part of his non-kinetic approach to solving the rising criminality, in the region. You get it? Because young people must have something to depend on, something to fall back on. And these things are not just about vocational skills, because these skills, it cuts across a myriad of areas, from carpentry to plumbing to mechanic, building and all
engineering.
That. Engineering and all. But apart from that, there is also the tech aspect of these skills, because the governor has come up with what he calls the Solution Innovation District. Now, this district is, if you like, our own Silicon Valley, and it speaks to the S of the ADTS component of his development agenda. Remember, he's renowned for talking about Africa, Dubai, Taiwan, the S and the Silicon Valley. So if you look at that metaphor of the Africa, Dubai, Taiwan, if you permit me to explain a bit of it, maybe please, I could just now. If you look at the Dubai component of it, Dubai is more or less like the leisure and commerce, logistics hub of the world. So that is exactly where he envisions Anambra to be in terms of trade and commercial aspect. We are looking to transitioning into the commercial and maybe leisure hub of Africa. More or less like our own Dubai here.
Is it that people sort of misunderstood the metaphor? Because I have seen attacks along the lines of, where is Anambra, Dubai?
Taiwan.
Where is it? Anambra, Dubai, Taiwan.
The question is it's actually born out of mischief, and I'll tell you why. Most people, how do I put it? There's this proverb, or will I say a story, a folklore, that has to do with the tortoise that has been in a ditch for many years. And the day the villagers came together to bring it out of the ditch, they passed in the rope into the pit and say, okay, hold it, come and say, people should be faster. This house is spelling too much. No, people don't understand that Rome was not built in a day. The Dubai we're talking about today, if you look at Dubai as of 1978, maybe 40 years ago, he may not be, So those you see say that are people who are just trying to be, in quote, to be fair to them, mischievous. Because the foundational works of that African Dubai, Taiwan, is what we are seeing today in Anambra. And that is the reason why people are saying, no, this man, people who have seen, majority of Anambra have seen it, and they say, no, this man is going somewhere, and he deserves a second term, at least to continue what he's doing. Talk about the Taiwan. Taiwan is, there's a popular book written, by one Taiwanese leader who talked about, they keep your oil and give us the people. So Anambra's biggest resource is human capital. So, and that is exactly why he's making a lot of changes in terms of education, in terms of skills development, in terms of tech and all that, to ensure that Anambra, like I said earlier, has a human capital that is productive at home and exportable abroad. And this is why you're seeing all these reforms in terms of human capital increase in the school system. You know, the health sector is also having its own fair share of, how do I put it, boost and, you know, investment. Because, of course, in Anambra today, people take for granted that the government begins to take care of you from cradle, from the womb. Because in Anambra today, we have totally free antenatal and free delivery for all pregnant women. All pregnant women, yes, in Anambra today. Totally free antenatal, free delivery for every pregnant woman. So the government is interested in the child, even in the womb. So the child comes out and the child is going to school for free. So it tells you the volume of investment that we are making in terms of our human capital development. Then you talk about the Silicon Valley. That is like the tech headquarters of the world. And that's exactly what we're doing with the SID, the Solution Innovation District.
Say that again.
Solution Innovation District.
Okay.
Yes. So now, you know, since its birth, it has trained over 30,000 young people in various tech skills. There are success stories to that. Okay. Even in the 1U2 skills, there are massive success stories, and I'm sure that your station was there on the day. In fact, the first batch of 5,000 young 5,000 young people who have been trained through the 1U2 skills, about 1,000 of them came out to freely train at no cost on government another 1,000. Okay. This is minus the fact that there's another number 8,700 young persons who will be graduating very soon. In fact, they are finished because the process of the 1U2 skill is you choose a skill, 2 skills that you want. You go through depending on the skill you want. By the minimum of 6 months, you're taken through rigorous trainings by experts in the area. After which you go for another 2 weeks.
Are these local experts? That is indigenous. Are they indigenous?
There are indigenous. There are, of course, there are indigenous experts, and there are those that are also sourced from outside of the region. Okay. Because of course, nobody cares where you come from. People care the value you're giving to give, and the person who's in the skills is interested in where you come from. You
know what you've been talking about. It's since the beginning. It's the work that Professor Soludo has been doing as the governor ever since he came on board, and I guess when you said. Well, first of all, when he presented himself for re-election, it must mean that he's determined to, take this perhaps to completion, because it's a work in progress as we speak. And you said that it's in the Anambra. It's not an APGA only thing. There are those who will question that, say, look, speak for yourself. When it comes to Anambra, there are many other candidates. Let me take it along the lines of, for instance, the ease of doing business in Anambra. Is that something that is actually available? That ease of doing business,
I am sure,
or is it a closed society?
Okay, Uncle Yuri, I'll tell you. I am sure by the time the next statistics will be coming out, maybe Anambra will be topping, if not number 1, number 2, or number 3. But as of today, it is number 7.
And this is up from 29 or something like that.
Currently, they are number 7, and number 1 in the entire southern, 17 southern states. This is verifiable. So there's a whole lot of investments going on in the state.
Can Soludo actually take credit for that? Or was it an organic thing that just happened?
No, it's not an organic. It's not necessarily an organic thing, because of course there has to be structures, there has to be policies put in place. These policies and structures are the things that drive the change you see. As I told you in Anambra, for instance, let's look at the land use system. The land use system in Anambra today. In Anambra today, there has been these major reforms in terms of land acquisition, such that with pride and can tell you for free that in Anambra today, you can get your land titles ready from the Ministry of Land in less than 7 days. Today. So anything that if you're an investor, you're coming to Anambra and you want access to land and all that, you have it done for you seamlessly. Anambra today operates an open budgeting system that our budgets are placed immediately. They are signed. They are uploaded straight up, to the state's website for anyone who cares to see, to see the budget specifics and the targeted areas that they are supposed to. Anambra today operates a largely capital-based budget, and this has happened since Governor Soludo came in the last 3 years. That our budget, the capital part of our budget, has never been less than 70%. This is the government that came into power and has reduced largely the cost of governance. Because before now there used to be this, okay, let me say this. Part of the major challenges that this government encountered in the build-up to...
I don't know how you read my mind. I was going to go to, wait a minute, okay. Where are the challenges? Okay. You've been saying these beautiful things about your man. Yeah. There's no way you look at the governor.
Verifiable things, not just beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful but verifiable.
Yes. Yeah. So what I was going to ask, surely there must be some challenges, which of course, for instance, there are people who say, let's go to infrastructure. What has he done?
Exactly.
What has been done?
But I was about going there. In the build-up to the campaigns of 2021 that brought him into power, it was unanimously agreed across different stakeholder groups, across different communities, that Anambra had a road crisis.
Yes.
A road crisis. People could hardly crisscross the state without having one hiccup or the other. Some communities were totally cut off. Some communities that were quite integral to the economy of the states were very difficult to reach. And I'll give you some examples. Now, there's a place called Obofemili. Obofemili is an agrarian town that since the creation of Adam and Eve, they've not seen an inch of tarred road. Today, the governor has constructed a 26.7 kilometer road from, almost the heart of the state capital, leading straight to Obofemili. A journey that hitherto took about 3 to 4 hours to make from Obofemili to the state capital. Now you can do it in 20 minutes.
Wow.
That's ease for the woman who is cultivated.
That's verifiable.
This is on one side, and the other side that has to do with connecting the central and northern part of the state seamlessly. That's the Amansi to Fuma end of the road. 126 kilometers of road has been fully completed and commissioned. Now, I wouldn't want to go into the various other roads and tell you, but what I will tell you for free is that in the last 3 years, the government has awarded over 754 kilometers of road with about 462 fully completed and asphalted, and at a quality never before seen by Anambra. We have a road now. Before, it's not just about doing the earthwork and laying the asphalt. Now, after the earthwork, you're doing your stone base. After the stone base, you're doing what they call the sub-cement stabilization before you now lay asphalt. None of these roads has a warranty less than 20 years, signed by the contractors themselves. So it tells you, it speaks to the quality of not just infrastructure, but the quality of infrastructure put in place. You go to a place, a hitherto urban slum, housing over 1 million, residents in Anambra called Okpoko. If you're able to shift, if I'm to show you the picture of Okpoko before Soludo, okay. In fact, that was the first place after he was sworn in. The first place he visited was Okpoko. And 3 years after, he has gone back there. Okpoko never had access to health. Today, there's a general hospital standing in Okpoko, a built and equipped and staffed general hospital in Okpoko. Today there's about 15 kilometers of inner city roads in Okpoko with pipe-borne water and street lights everywhere. Now the residents now call that place New Heaven. These things are, I'm not, see, the general hospital was commissioned by the Minister of Health, Professor Lipati. Yeah. So I'm not telling you things that are just beautiful to the ears without any verifiable element. You have your men in Anambra, tell them to tell you what's happening.
Dr. Bara, you're speaking about all of this with a passion, and indeed, I mean, you should be proud if all of these things are actually happening. But there are a lot of people who feel, unlike your party, that nobody came out, and they said that let Charles Chukwuma Soludo, let him go on and continue his work. There are people, as you know, I mentioned some names, these are also not men of small means in themselves. So you're speaking as if, look, this is locked up and it's almost like people should not bother themselves.
It's a fait accompli, and it's not about me, really. Maybe I didn't mention in my opening that in the build-up to the primary, different stakeholder groups, I can tell you one, the students, the student community, the youth, talk about Anambra has a very effective system of town union administration. So we have those we call the PGs, President Generals. Now we have that body is quite it's quite very effective because it's more or less like the closest government to the people in terms of community administration and all that. So we have 179 to 182 of them, past and present PGs, who have come together to endorse Suludo for second term. I mentioned to you students, I mentioned to you youths, and also religious bodies who have also, it's not about an ABGA thing. As a matter of fact, someone said that it amounts to a criminal offense if anyone stands against Suludo for second term. I'm telling you the feelers from the street. So this I'm giving you I'm giving you the feelers from the street.
But okay, I'm hearing, and that's why we invited you to come and tell us about this. But hey, there's
ABGA is helpless. That's what I'm telling you. If ABGA couldn't have done otherwise, what you see, because people look at it and say maybe one is that there was nobody who wanted to run against the Suludo in ABGA that was excluded from the race. Now, when INEC released the timetable for the elections in Anambra State, ABGA as a party came up with its own schedule for events, schedule of activity which was largely publicized, both on newspapers and various other media. Now, nobody came up to say, I want to purchase the form. What we're just getting were endorsements, people who were even electing to purchase the form for him. As a matter of fact, about 60 support groups have sprang out, compared to the 42 that supported him in the first bit. Now we have about 60 support groups with over 120,000 supporters who on their own came out and they are saying anything that has to do with this election, leave it for us.
All right. I think we'll take a break here, because it's been steaming hot. You're so spiked up by the achievements of ABGA in Anambra. And by the way, I've heard it said that no other party can come to Anambra. And it is like they feel there's no vacancy there. Let's come back and talk a bit about that. But we'll go on a quick break. Do please stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll include your calls then too. Stay with us, please.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Okay, there's so much to say that you could see that Dr. Param and ourselves were still chatting. He's been very, very enthusiastic and upbeat about the chances of his candidate, who, by the way, is the incumbent governor, former central bank governor, academic. He's a professor, and he certainly loves his state, and he's been working. You've heard it all. In fact, the best person you could have is Ejimofo. You have him, he'll tell you all about it. But as I've been saying, there are people listening who are from other parties. There's still PDP that is interested in the office. APC is interested in the office. Labour Party is interested in the office. And you seem to be sitting cool, metaphorically speaking, say, nah, there is no problem.
All these parties have all come up to endorse the governor for second term. If you talk about the APC in Anambra, the APC in Anambra is just a department of ABGA.
Well, you say that because he's a recent entrant.
Yeah, no. Over the years, look at the, facts, figures don't lie. Those who call themselves APC in Anambra, for instance, they don't have a well-structured, organization down to the polling booth or even the ward level. There are some polling units and some.
As you've been working for yourselves, you've been keeping an eye on what competition has been doing?
Well, of course. It's a race, it's a contest, and we're taking nothing for granted. So, of course, we recognize that it's a race, and we're going into this race with very, single-mindedness. We are going to match anyone on all fronts. We're not taking anything for granted, not even the support of the people. We'll do all that we should do as a political party to ensure, that we justify the confidence reposed in us. But it shouldn't still be a latitude for us to want to, assert what does not exist. Because you can't place something on expect it to stand. Before you talk about a political party, then there must be some very valid, formidable structure, of that party, anywhere. But in some of these parties, the PDP is comatose. As a matter of fact, they're not even in consideration as far as this race is concerned. Like I said earlier,
so says you. So says the APGA person.
So says the facts on ground. Okay, who is the PDP candidate?
Actually, I'm still working. I should have known that because this is, they held theirs, I think about a week after.
I don't even know the person myself. So if as a stakeholder in the state and someone who is in a party chieftain, I don't even know the name of the candidate of the PDP, it tells you how almost incognito they have gone.
But you do know the name of the Labour Party candidate.
And
that is a man of timber and caliber
too.
We're talking about George Moghalu.
He's a gentleman,
but
like I said, he still has the same part of the. There's no Labour Party anywhere in and Anambra has this thing clear cut for them. When it has to do with state elections, state government elections, the gubernatorial elections, they are single-minded when it has to do with APGA.
Okay.
When it comes to the governorship election, George Moghalu himself knows. He knows that he may even struggle to even win his polling booth. He would struggle. In fact, he would make a larger chunk of his investment in the election will go into him trying to win his polling booth.
Well, that's what you are saying, and we take it because you are the person saying it.
That's the fact.
Let me take the first caller this morning. Good morning, Mr. Joshua in Irewolede.
Very good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for calling in.
And my greetings to your guest. To a large extent, Uncle Yori, Nigeria is blessed with human resources. There's no doubt about that. Whether from states and all the segments of the society. And Governor Soludo is one of them. I'm happy for him that he's doing well in Anambra. I'm not there. But one thing that is obvious there, he has somebody who is speaking well for him. That's really what I think should happen at the presidency. People should be able to speak for the government they represent and be genuine. You can see his body language, everything is clear. So even if he's telling lies, you believe him. So, people should have that conviction that I'm working with my words. And so I'm happy for that state, and I wish them luck as they go ahead. Indeed. I just want to put a challenge to him and to his principal that, it is time for the East to integrate their politics with the national politics. Governor Soludo is one person that we should not measure his achievement just by what he does in his state alone. He's somebody, he was the governor of the central bank, and we know how central that is. That is Nigeria. So he was once the head of a very, very strategic place in Nigeria. And he should be somebody who has Nigeria at the forefront of his programs. So I want to believe that in the next 4 years, we should be hearing more about how the East, through him and his colleagues, are integrating the region into the national politics. So it won't just be that he's a local champion performing wonders in the state, but you cannot actually pick something that he's pushing for the unity of Nigeria to solidify. That's just my challenge to him, and I wish him luck and success in his election. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in. There was something of a backhanded compliment, but I'm sure he didn't mean it like that when he said, even if he's telling lies, you're going to have to believe him. But I'm sure he didn't mean it in that negative way.
I understand
what he was saying, as a matter of fact, you recall that we had talked about that when we were off air. It's palpable that you believe in your product, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And that's where he was saying that, look, having spokespeople for these, principals, it's a crucial position. So, well, Mr. Joshua Inide, he thought he'd just give you your flowers up front straight away. I appreciate him.
I appreciate him. And of course, I appreciate, I tell people that, opportunity is everything. And when it's a meet preparedness, this is exactly the kind of result you get. And, we can't thank Esolude enough, because his belief in young people is something that every young person in the state remains grateful for. He has given us a voice, given us a platform. And that's what is almost missing in some areas.
Let me not, and because the way you speak, it's so persuading, let me not forget that there still are some one or two other. Let me take security, for instance. There are those who are saying that Soludo doesn't have a security record. That is the opposite of insecurity. What has he done in that regard, even as he was promising us before coming to office? In the same way, I think you've commented on that, the same way we were promised that you see Anambra like Taiwan, like you've spoken on that. But on this whole matter of security, and then after that, we go to infrastructure. Okay.
So now, in terms of security, let me remind us, because oftentimes when things get better, we forget how they were. Now, before the assumption of office of Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo in Anambra State, about 8 local governments of the states were under siege. And when I mean under siege by non-state actors. Those who came under the pretext of freedom fighting, came under the pretext of succession and all that, raising all sorts of warped ideology to confuse our young people and, took up arms to fight legitimate authority. Now, a better part of these 8 local governments, much of which were in the southern part of the state, and one in Barud, but that is the north of the state, were under siege. People could barely, in fact, Governor Soludo himself couldn't campaign in some local governments in the build-up to 2021 elections. Now, when we came on board, the first thing was he met it with fierce resistance. And he was not mincing words in telling them that, see, anyone who is in the bush is a criminal. Okay. And that if you must negotiate, you must come to the negotiation table. You can't be in the bush and you want to negotiate for whatever reason, okay, whatever stuff you are using.
Forgive me for interrupting you, but Ike has called in from Calabar, if I got that right. Okay. Is it Ike in Calabar?
Yes, correct.
Good morning. Please go ahead, Mr. Ike.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Particularly, let me appreciate you, Uncle Yori, and TVC for bringing up enterprising discussions that are intellectually mobile, and also x-raying the political landscape within which the general operations of our regional politics vis-a-vis Nigeria stands on. On this ground, I appreciate you personally and TVC. Now back to your guest in the studio, Ejimofo. I must give it to him, just like the first caller rightly said. When you are operating within the latitudes of facts, it takes even a concerted effort of the devil to even dispute what you are saying. I'm not a politician and I don't intend to be one in a hurry. Now, the idea is this. He has clearly demonstrated an epitome of mastery in analyzing facts and logic as to what is being done in Anambra. He's not saying, come and ask me a question. He says, go and verify. He's not coming with any voodoo agenda or anything. He just says, go and do this. From this to this is established. From this point to this point, this is this. He's giving you a large scale. He's telling you that this is my plan. This is what he has done in so and so. Now, so the first caller actually asked the question, how do we integrate? He's putting a challenge that to integrate the regional development within the political ecosystems of Anambra State, and particularly in the, what they call it, the southeast, to now link up to the federal government to replicate this. Sorry, let me start from there. I don't agree to certain modeling that it is a good challenge, but the question is that until when we accept the realities of criticism, until when we accept the realities of truth, until when we accept facts by ourselves, that, okay, this thing is true, and that is when those things can work the way it is. Other than that, if you have government upon government from different states, different regions, who cannot accept criticism, even including a Ejimofo that is seated there, I will advise him, my only advice to him, Abga and every other person is that If people criticize you, they are not criticizing the government for any reason. They are asking you to be tolerant to the extent to which you can manage diversities and then put governance in perspective to all. But in our own case, the moment I say, oh, Uncle Yori, you are in TVC, you don't know how to anchor a program. Someone, oh, Uncle Yori, I don't know how you anchor this program. It ought to have been this. They'll say, oh, maybe because this is Ike. He is coming from Southeast. That is why he's speaking like this. If he did, I don't expect him to do anything different. That is the kind of apathy we have. But a nice person will ask, with a very sound brain, will say, why do you think Uncle Yori is not anchoring this program very well? He will do a synthesis of that. So that will be my own advice to that. And then number two, I will advise him of when all these verifiable facts that I are saying, put it on media, let people see it, let them check it. Mr. Mogolu is coming up under labor. That's fine. He is also a very sound human being, and we appreciate this. The collective idea of the South is the only challenge I'm putting to Governor Soludo and every other person who wish to contest anywhere in the Southeast is or should be. Please, we should be able to front security. We should be able to front unity and tell ourselves, even if you are being taken down anywhere, you should be able to say, if people reject me, I will not reject myself. And the moment the facts are being put on ground, you will realize that nobody can say anything. I take your mind back to say something that when P2B was contesting the election, I'm not saying this that I'm a biased person, respectfully speaking, to regions. No. He said every day, go and check what I have said. Go back and verify me. And the security people run up and down. DSS, everything they did. That.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling in. Again, kudos to you because people are appreciating, your presentation as it was about your subject matter. And you are the National Publicity Secretary of APGA and also the Senior Special Assistant to Governor Soludo on new media. So people are really enjoying the fruits of your work. I guess you're lucky in that it's not every time that people want to give people their flowers, but people are compelled to say it here that, look, that gentleman is doing a fantastic job about, what's, for his principle. Yeah. And we have mentioned, and somebody else has also mentioned that, wait a minute, among others, there is George Mogalu there. Understandably, you don't want to talk about that, I can understand that. There's also Nicholas Ukachukwu, who you've explained that, you don't think that there's a problem. But where are the challenges? Because I must make sure to get that in. Okay. You must, a man as cerebral and intellectual as Governor Soludo, and indeed your good self, you are a PhD holder, you'll be analytical enough to agree that there are still some challenges that we are working at. What would you say those are?
Okay, now I want to round off my thoughts on security before I maybe... Sure. So, like I said, just to, in the build-up. So, what I'm trying to say is that from the get-go, Governor Soludo has never rested on his laurels with regards to security. He has been quite, very bullish about it.
Sorry, sir. Before you continue, Elder David has called in. So let me just bring Elder David in. Good morning to you, Elder David.
Thank you, Yori. God will bless you.
Thank you, sir. And you too.
Yes, Soludo is a man I respected very highly.
Please continue. We can hear you. We can hear you. Please continue.
Soludo is the best governor Anambra have ever had since 1999. Gige was there. We know the problem how we bring Badunoju. Yes. Thank you very much. I was speaking. I say, Gige was there. We know the problem how we bring Badunoju. Then Obi crossover from PDP to Abga. He won there, and he was impeached. A woman take over. And Obiano came there. And his wife slapped Ojuku's wife. May God forgive him. So Soludo has done a very good job in Anambra, and I can bet anybody is going to win that election. Though I'm a member of APC, I don't hide it anywhere. What Soludo have done so far is exactly what Wike did in Rivers. It's what we have seen in Lagos State they are doing. And that is a man. God himself will bless him for what he has done.
All right. Thank you very much, Elder David. Appreciate your calling in. Performers, performing governors is what he's talking about.
Exactly. So back to security. Today in Anambra State, we have, because of course, as a government, you must operate from the side of the law, because as a chief executive officer and the chief law enforcement officer of the state, you must, at every point in time, be found on the good side of the law. So, he looked at it, and some other issues that almost looked like they were not, justiciable, but were part of the fulcrum that gave rise to the teething insecurity around the region, around the state. He looked at it and said, okay, well, we have to, legislate on these issues and be able to correct some of the anomalies. And that was what gave rise to the Anambra State Homeland Security Law of 2025, which was signed sometime in February. Now, this law provided the framework for the kind of renewed and rejigged security architecture that you have in the state today. Now, it's a law that gave birth to what we call Agune Chamber. Agune Chamber, that has come up with a security operation codenamed Udogachi. And what that means is that peace must prevail.
Okay.
So now this Agune Chamber is a community policing system that now takes back security to the people. The people themselves are not directly in charge of their security, because you cannot secure a place you don't know. If you brought somebody,
how well is that going? How well is that going?
As a matter of fact, there was a recent statistics that came out from, I think, the policing department, that in the last 1 month, no gunshot has been heard in Anambra State. This is, I'm talking about in March, when the program was launched in February. So there's this renewed, collaboration between this community policing system and the formal policing structures. Many thanks to, the police, the army, navy, and all that. There's this, joint effort right now that has made the state, a very secured place, to stay. Okay. But it didn't start just in February. And I can give you context that when we came in, 8 local governments were under siege. And before even the security law was signed in, much of those areas had been, liberated. So, but what's important that I would like to mention here is that beyond the other factors that encourage criminality, one thing you can't take away is the psychology of the criminal. Something fuels, the psychology of the criminal. Some of those things find root in the social fabric of society. Some of them may be economic or maybe religious. But what's important is that Governor Soludo has come to the very root of that problem to uproot it. And what is that? We discovered in the state that there was this, resurgence of, if you like, idolatry. There was this resurgence of a core value system that made young people to be under undue pressure to make money. So you realize that we had this
You are calling it idolatry. There are those who will call it traditional worship.
There's a difference between traditional worship and idolatry.
Indeed.
Criminal idolatry, if you will.
Okay. Well, these cults.
Yeah, the cult, and criminal-minded native doctors who will tell you they would give you this, you make money, what we call okite and all that.
There's a lot of that going on in Anambra State.
Yeah, it used to. Because now, immediately, the law has criminalized such activities. So you can't come and tell that you can make a billionaire just by producing the head of cow or producing the heart of a chicken. Some of them were even at the heart of some of these, maybe you call it organ harvesting, kidnapping. You see people who do some of these criminal activities under the pretext that they are being encouraged by some supernatural powers that are quite unexplainable.
The governor has been working on that too.
Yes, it has received wide appreciation and wide commendation from the people.
We've almost run out of time, but I did want to slip in what is this? The degradation of the environment. That's a natural phenomenon. Yeah. So very briefly, we don't have the time. Could you, in 30 seconds, tell me if he's overwhelmed by that, or if it's not strategic to even go in that direction?
Well, first of all, if you look at the 5 pillars of the administration, environment is one of the standalone pillars, and that was because we recognized that environment was one of our existential threats as a people. Anambra is actually the erosion capital of Nigeria, if not Africa.
That's right.
Good. So, there's been this, multi-stakeholder approach, including major interventions by the state government to help check it. So today, we have a new environmental law that has, more or less built up to regulate, because some of these things are human. For instance, you come to a place and there is nothing to help run off water. People build houses without, you know, making adequate arrangement for runoff water. People come and they block drainages. So some of those human-related factors. I can tell you that in Anambra today, most of these activities have been criminalized, and people are beginning to
take it seriously.
And that doesn't also mean that some of the ones that existed that we will not require some level of support to help check. But the ones that are within the purview of the state to do, I can tell you for free that Governor Soludo is doing them head on.
I mean, you're quite a fast speaker, and in spite of that, it's clear, and there's so much that we can't even touch, so we really must have you back, you know, in the course of time. But I want to thank you very much, Dr. Mazi Ejimofo Opara, PhD.
Thank you, sir.
I added the PhD so that people won't come and tell you